afternoon, everyone. This is Jared Rand, and welcome to the Global Guided Meditation Call for Wednesday, after 3 p.m. Eastern. We're having a Time for Change call tonight at 9 p.m., and we'll be talking about now in America and what has just transpired. One of the biggest challenges, I would say, or I'd say discovery for civilization is to understand, do not delude yourself by imagining your source to be some God outside you. Your source is within yourself. Give yourself up to it. Seek the source within and merge with it. Ramana Maharshi. We live in a world that ignores the fact that a supreme divine, all-loving intelligence lives within us. We have been programmed to believe we are spiritually disconnected and must fix our broken selves to feel whole and reconnected again. We don't realize it, yet we are just used to feeling spiritually numb, as we have been plagued every day of our lives by an overly materialistic society, which is constantly seducing us with its glorified billion-dollar hypnotic media programming. We have contracted a deep case of spiritual amnesia and have forgotten how to relax into our spiritual essence and find our own intimate connection with the divine. This everyday ignorance of our spiritual nature is the greatest lie mankind is living today. It is the case of every moment of suffering each human being is currently enduring in this very moment, this very now. One may think this spiritual drought was created by mankind, coincidentally, or without purpose in this universe. This blind ignorance is within us all on purpose so that we move more passionately towards a state of awakening. These intense levels of disconnection only drive us deeper inside ourselves to find our own soul. This lifetime we have is meant to be a deeply enlightening experience. Is there anything more important than knowing how to access your own direct personal connection to an all-powerful, deeply eternally loving source of highly intelligent creative energy that has the magical power to manifest anything our hearts desire? There is nothing more vital to finding happiness in life than knowing one's spiritual connection, and nothing more exciting than a proven way to access it, which works every time. No matter how ridiculously stuck any of us feel about our financial situation, our relationships, our health, our sex life, and future, there's always a way to reach freedom if and when we wish to gain a greater spiritual perspective in this life. Make the choice today to clarify your personal relationship with the divine, and you can see how far you've come on your spiritual journey by taking the risk to answer some questions with yourself. And these questions we've gone over before, but they need to be repeated over and over and over and over again. What is stopping you from always being in communion with God? Now, no one is going to know this but you. Each of us, the only way we know this is to ask ourselves, to be openly truthful with ourselves. What is stopping you from always being in communion with God? And in this very moment, in this now, what exactly is your relationship with God like? There's no reason to be embarrassed about it with yourself, or feel guilt, or suppress it, or to be uneasy with it. It's an open communication. The only one that's going to know is you. What does it feel like when you're having a truly intimate connection with God? Feeling. What does that feel like? How often do you recognize and connect with divine aspects of yourself? How often do you recognize and connect with the divine aspects of yourself? We're not talking about judging yourself either. How is your life different when living with this connection versus without it? The longer we sit with these questions and feel into our answers, the deeper we will dig into our souls and eventually discover our spiritual connections. It is never too late. I've talked to people in their 80s and 90s, pushing 100. It's never too late to connect. Even if you've gone through 75 plus years of your life on a gluttonous, frivolous, mindless activities, feeding and feeling perpetually lost in a superficial life, the God source is still there. It's still here now. The door to the divine is always open, and God is waiting for you to come in. When you take one step towards God, God will take 10 steps towards you. Make time to redefine your relationship with the divine. And I can guarantee you that your precious time will not be wasted. Now, when I explore my own personal connection with the divine, I always first look into my heart rather than my head. I immediately go to my heart. Because the head is so full of ideas about what God is and is not. The head misses the real experience, feeling, and quality of godliness. When the mind is quiet, still, and single-pointed into the now, we can instantly find that deeply alive spiritual feeling inside. The God source already exists within the heart and at the core of our souls. As we relax into this place, a timeless, deeply eternal, loving, conscious energy sneaks into us and relaxes every cell and fiber of our very being. I find that God is the most mysterious thing in this universe, perhaps because it is the universe. God exists in everyone and everything, yes, including those people who you think are deeply disconnected. Have you wondered, how can such an amazing presence be so spatially close to us and still be so difficult to feel and see? It's like trying to look into our own eyes without a mirror. We look out at life through these amazing tiny black holes in our eyes, taking them for granted and not realizing they exist at all because they are so close to us. When something is too close to us, we are often unaware how precious it is. The same applies to noticing God. We are unaware of God until we take a step back and look deeper into our reflection in the great mirror that is all around us. Realization of the self is realization of God. It is not an experience of God. Rather, it is an understanding that one is God. Realization of the self is realization of God. It is not an experience of God. Rather, it is an understanding that one is God. Ramana Maharshi. Now, some of us discover this in our early years, some mid and some later, some none. And what it's like to experience in life a direct relationship with the divine. You may find through years of exploration and inquiry that it was much easier to connect with God by relating to it as an isness rather than an it. I find that God is more like a mysterious infinite energy than some fixed stagnant entity. It's an energy. This eternal quality. The great isness is instantly found when we stop and feel into this eternal quality, which feels like we are always and forever here now. The isness is our infinite nature. And this can only be experienced when we are living fully in the now, exploring life from a relaxed, trusting connection. The divine isness is the most accepting, healing, forgiving energy any of us can imagine. The isness is the source of deep eternal love, which when even momentarily welcomed, we instantly feel the most profound, ecstatic joy inside our hearts. The knowing that we are eternal spiritual beings moves through us throughout the day, like a healing river of eternal liquid love. The very second we surrender our hearts to just the idea of an eternally loving isness, we immediately find real peace, a sense of bliss, and a feeling of real satisfaction that cannot be compared. Knowing this isness is our basic nature, we start radiating like the sun and start shining our own spiritual essence onto everyone in our lives. The only reason we may not feel, believe, and know that God is right here within the very center of our bodies, soul, and heart right now is because of one thing blocking the way. One thing blocking the way. Our overly busy, demanding, controlling, and desiring mind. As long as the mind is wanting something, willing something, thinking it is lacking something, trying to reach a better place other than the great isness that's here now, we will easily miss our spiritual path. We will find ourselves living in thoughts about God instead of experiencing the real divinity. If and when we get too lost in the head, we might end up walking into some highly intellectual, materialistic, and spiritually dry future. The God source is infinitely complex, yet deeply simple. I find that God is actually quite easily to experience. The discovery is learning what it takes to fully be here now, to feel the divine isness, we must choose to first begin feeling whatever is up for us in the moment. We must choose to first begin feeling whatever is up for us in the moment. We must choose to explore how we can let go of the mind and open ourselves up emotionally, feeling everything that is here now. When we call off the mental search, looking for God out there, and simply feel into the core essence of our being, we find that we have been the ones who were hiding and protecting ourselves from the divine. God has always been here, is always here, radiating within every atom in existence. As we drop deeper beneath the thinking mind, through our blocked emotions, we discover the great source of peace, silence, and stillness. And this is where God abides. Psalm 46:10, be still and know that I am God. That's you. That's every one of us. Perhaps the most radical truth that's been discovered about this human existence is this. Humans are either existing in some form of suffering or living in some form of bliss. We humans are either existing in some form of suffering or living in some form of bliss. We are either in one or the other. We are either living up in our heads or we are in the heart of God. Once we quiet the mind and open our hearts together, we can live a balanced life in both realms of head and heart. Doing this, we then start merging with the infinite mind of God. If and when we can remain in this balance 24 hours a day, we will master this lifetime. If and when we can remain in this balance 24 hours a day, we will master this lifetime. Then every thought we think manifests into forming our living reality. By living in constant emotional connection with the divine from our core, we become a living bliss, breathing manifestation machine, perpetually creating every beautiful idea we feel and focus upon. We all know there are not many things guaranteed in this life. Yet one thing that is 100% guaranteed is this. At some point, we are going to return to God. It will happen either when our bodies are still alive or when our body stops breathing. Eventually, we will feel intimately connected with God again. So do not worry about when or how. All roads lead back to God. The path ahead and the path behind us both lead back to God. God is unavoidable because our past and future are just mental concepts which only exist within this living present moment. The mind alone is always blind to the divine. The mind alone is always blind to the divine. It is only with a quiet, surrendered mind that we may access an open, receptive heart which can see God in everyone and everything. The mind just doesn't want to realize how ignorant it actually is. It doesn't want to see how powerless, unfulfilled, and trapped it is, as this would cause a huge embarrassment to the ego. When we spiritually wake up, the mind realizes its petty search in the outer world to find everlasting satisfaction is spiritually fruitless. When we spiritually wake up, the mind realizes its pretty petty search in the outer world to find everlasting satisfaction is spiritually fruitless. Only when the mind surrenders to God, which is who all of us are within these bodies, do we discover what absolute bliss feels like. Otherwise, the mind will continue to persist in its addictive habits of seeking fulfillment in the outer world. It will ignore seeing how true bliss is available here, now. As if it needs to continue its addictive search for years, decades, and lifetimes. The mind is always trying to get its desires met by people, food, substances, money, ideas. It is in the habit of constantly yearning for something. Yet, as we all know, once the mind gets what it wants, it's only happy for a short while. Then it is back on the hamster wheel again, searching for fulfillment again. The mind is deeply unaware that it can never, ever, ever, ever be truly satisfied. It's unaware. It doesn't know. Imagine that. It's good to know that whatever happens in this life, there are no real mistakes. We say, oh, I made a mistake, or I made a boo-boo, or they made a mistake, or there really isn't any mistakes. We use the words right and wrong, we use the words mistakes and other words, but those are made up. God is an infinitely positive, creative energy, and this fierce force does not know what a mistake is. Every mistake that we perceive to be real or true is simply the mind forming another judgment. There is universal right or wrong book, right? There is universal right or wrong book. There is only deeper shades of truth in which each higher layer only reveals a lighter perspective on our enlightening mission. We are here to learn. We're here to experience. Now, we all have whether it's unconscious, subconscious, or conscious, we all have this. The greatest goal of life is to find that God source inside us 24 hours a day. This is the only thing which truly satisfies. Everything else falls vastly short. Feeling into our own personal, intimate connection with the divine is the most important thing we can do with our time each day. Everything else we do is going to be the ego seeking some form of gratification, which, of course, will not last. Beware of the ego, as it is easily caught in complaints, negativity, creating problems that weren't there before. Our only only job is to move beyond our egos, transcend our small selves, and step into the big self that we truly are. When we finally surrender to God, to the supreme energy, to collective consciousness, to pure consciousness, whatever you want to label, when we finally surrender to God at the center of our souls, we will know without a doubt that we have just discovered the most amazing experience of coming home. We win only with existence. We win only with existence, never against existence. And remember, existence is not trying to defeat us. Our defeat is self-generated. We are defeated because we fight. If we want to be defeated, fight. If we want to win, surrender. This is the paradox. And this is towards ourselves. Those who are ready to give in become winners. The losers are the only winners in this game. Try to win and your defeat is absolutely certain. It is only a question of time, of when, but it is certain it is going to happen. It is wholly because we are one with the whole. We throb with it. We dance with it. We sing with it. We are like a leaf in the wind. The leaf simply dances in the wind. It has no will of its own. This willlessness is what you would call holy. Some may have heard of Patanjali in the path of yoga. Patanjali's skill in expressing the inexpressible is superb. Nobody has ever been able to surpass him. He has mapped the inner world of consciousness as accurately as it is possible. He's almost done an impossible job. This is a little short story about Ramakrishna. One day he said to his disciples, I will tell you everything today and will not keep anything secret. He described clearly the centers and the corresponding experiences up to the heart and throat. And then pointing to the spot between the eyebrows, he said, the Supreme Self is directly known and the individual experiences, samadhi, when the mind comes here. There remains then but a thin transparent screen separating the Supreme Self and the individual self. The sadhak then experiences. Saying this, the moment he started to describe in detail the realization of the Supreme Self, he was plunged into samadhi. He became unconscious. When the samadhi came to an end and he came back, he tried again to describe it and was again in samadhi. Again, he became unconscious. After repeated attempts, Ramakrishna broke into tears, told his disciples that it was impossible to speak about it. But Ramakrishna has tried in many ways from different directions, and this always happens. His whole life, whenever he comes beyond the third eye center and is coming nearer Sahasrara, he is so deeply caught hold of by something inner that the very remembrance of it, the very effort to describe it, and he is gone. For hours he will remain unconscious. It's natural because the bliss of Sahasrara is such. One is almost overpowered by it. The bliss is so oceanic that one is possessed by it and taken over. One is no longer oneself. Once you transcend the third eye, you are no longer oneself. Ram Krishna tried and failed, could not describe it. Many others have not even tried. Lao Tzu, for his whole life, resisted saying anything about the world of Tao because of this. Nothing can be said about it. And the moment you try to say it, you are plunged into an inner whirlwind, whirlpool. You are lost, drowned. You are bathed in such beauty and beatitude that you cannot utter a single word. But Patanjali has done the impossible. He has described as exactly as possible each step, each integration, each chakra, its functioning, and how to transcend it up to Sahasrara. And has even indicated beyond. On each chakra, on each wheel of energy, which means that's what chakra is, it's a wheel of energy, a certain integration happens. So at the sex center, the first center, the most primitive but the most natural, the one that is available to all, the integration happens between the outer and the inner. Well, of course, it is momentary. A woman meeting a man or a man meeting a woman come for a single moment, a split moment, where the outer and inner meet and mingle and merge into each other. That's the beauty of sex, the orgasm, that two energies, the complementary energies, meet and become one whole. But it is going to be momentary because the meeting is through the most gross element, the body. The body can touch surfaces, but it cannot really enter the other. It is like ice cubes. If you put two ice cubes together, they can touch each other. But if they melt and become water, then they meet and mingle with each other. Then they go to the very center. And if the water evaporates, then the meeting becomes very, very, very deep. Then there is no I, no thou, no inner, no outer. The first center, the sex center, gives us a certain integration. That's why there is so much hankering for sex. It is natural. It is in itself beneficial and good. But if you stop there, you have stopped in the porch of a palace. The porch is good. It leads you into the palace. But it is not a place to make your abode. It is not a place to stop forever. And the bliss that is waiting for you on higher integrations of other centers will be missed. In comparison to that, bliss and happiness and joy, the beauty of sex is nothing. The pleasure of sex is nothing. It simply gives you a momentary glimpse. The second chakra is the hara. At the hara, life and death meet. If and when you reach to the second center, you reach to a higher orgasm of integration, life meeting death, sun meeting moon. And the meeting is inner now. So the meeting can be more permanent, more stable. Because we are not dependent on anybody else. Now we are meeting our own inner woman, our own inner man. The third center is the navel. There the positive and the negative meet. The positive electricity and the negative electricity. Their meeting is even higher than life and death because the electric energy, the prana, the bioplasma, or life and death. It exists before life. It exists after death. Life and death exist because of bioenergy. This meeting of bioenergy at the navel, the Nabi, gives us even a higher experience of being one, integrated, a unity. Then is the heart at the center, at the heart center. The lower and the higher meet at the heart center. The Prakriti and the Purusha, the sexual and the spiritual, the worldly and the otherworldly. Or we can call in this the meeting of heaven and earth. It is still higher because for the first time, something of the beyond dawns. We can see the sun rising at the horizon. We are still rooted in the earth, but our branches are spreading into the sky. We have become a meeting. That's why the heart center gives the highest and the most refined experience ordinarily available, the experience of love. The experience of love is the meeting of earth and heaven. So love is in a way earthly and in another way heavenly. If Jesus defined God as love, this is the reason. Because in human consciousness, love seems to be the higher glimpse. Ordinarily, people never go beyond the heart center. Even to reach to the heart center seems to be difficult, almost impossible. People remain at the sex center. If they are trained deeply in yoga, karate, aikido, tai chi, then they reach to the second center, the hara. If they are trained in the deep mechanism of breathing, prana, then they reach the navel center. And if they are trained how to look beyond earth and how to see beyond the body and how to look so deeply and so sensitively that we are no longer confined to the gross and the subtle can penetrate its first rays into us, only then, the heart. All paths of devotion, bhakti, yoga, work on the heart center. Tantra starts from the sex center. Tao starts from the hara center. Yoga starts from the navel center. Bhakti yoga, paths of devotion and love. Sufis and others start from the heart center. Higher than the heart is the throat center. Again, there happens another integration, even more superior, more subtle. This center is the center of receiving and giving. When the child is born, he receives from the throat center first. Life enters him from the throat center. He sucks air, breathes, and then he sucks milk from his mother. The child functions from the throat center, but it is half functioning, and soon he forgets about it, and he just receives. He cannot give yet. His love is passive. And if you are asking for love, then you remain juvenile. You remain childish, unless you mature, so that you can give love. You have not become a grown-up. Everybody asks for love, demands love, and almost nobody gives. That's the misery all over this planet. And everybody who demands thinks that he or she is giving, believes that they are giving. I have looked into thousands of people through the years, all hungry for love, thirsty for love, but nobody in any way trying to give. And they all believe that they are giving but not receiving. Once you give, you naturally receive. It has never happened otherwise. The moment we give, love rushes into us. It has nothing to do with people. It has something to do with the cosmic energy of existence. The throat center is the meeting of receiving and giving. We receive from it, and we give from it. That is the meaning of Christ saying that unless you become a child again, if you translate it into the yoga terminology, it will mean unless you come to the throat center again, the child forgets by and by. If you look into Freudian psychology, you will have a parallel. Freud says the first stage of the child is oral, the second stage is anal, and the third stage is genital. The whole of Freudian psychology ends with the third. Of course, it is a very poor psychology, very rudimentary, fragmentary, and concerned with the very lower functioning of human beings. Oral, yes, the child uses that throat center just to receive, and once he has started receiving, his being moves to the anal. Have you seen that a few people cling to the oral, even up to their death? These are the people you will find smoking. These are oral people. They still go on. The smoke, the cigarette, the cigar, gives them a feeling as if something hot, like mother's milk, is passing through the throat center. They remain confined to the oral, and they cannot give. If a person is a chain smoker, heavy smoker, almost always he is not a giver of love. He demands, but he will not give. People who are smoking too much are always interested in women's breasts, bound to be because a cigarette is a substitute for the nipple. Now, I'm not saying that people who are not smokers are not interested in women's breasts. Those who smoke are interested. Those who don't smoke are also interested. We may be chewing gum or something else, or they may be simply interested in pornography, or they may be just obsessed by the breast continuously in their mind, in their dream, in their imagination, fantasy, the breast, and breast go on floating all around them. These are oral people. Stuck. So when the statement made, you have to be a child again, it is meant that you choose to have to come back into the throat center, but with a new energy to give. All creative people are givers. They may sing a song for you, or dance a dance for, or write a poem, or paint a picture, or tell you a story. For all these, the throat center is again used as a center to give. The meaning of receiving and giving happens at the throat. The capacity to receive and to give is one of the greatest integrations. There are people who are only capable of receiving. They will remain miserable because you never become rich by receiving. You become rich by giving. In fact, you possess only that which you can give. If you cannot give it, you simply believe that you possess. You don't possess it. You are not a master. If you cannot give your money, then you are not the master of it. Then money is the master. If you can give it, then certainly you are the master. This will look like a paradox, but I'll repeat it. You are the possessor only of that which you give. The moment you give, in that very moment, you have become a possessor, enriched. Giving enriches you. Miserly people are the most miserable and poor people on this planet. Poorer than the poor. They cannot give. They are stuck. They go on hoarding. Their hoarding becomes a burden on their being. It does not free them. In fact, if you have something, you will become freer. If you have something, you will become freer. But look at the misers. They have much, but they are burdened. They are not free. Even beggars are freer than they. What has happened to them? Have you met them? Have you come across them? They have used their throat center just to receive. Not only have they not used their throat center to give, they have not even moved to the second Freudian center, anal. These people are always constipated, hoarders, misers, always suffer from constipation. That may sound funny, but it's true. Now, I'm not saying that all people who have constipation are misers. There may be other reasons, but misers are certainly constipated. Now, Freud made a statement a while back that there is something in gold and excreta. Both look yellow. People who are constipated are too attracted to gold. Otherwise, gold has no existential value. Some psychological value, but no existential value. You cannot eat it. You cannot drink it. What can you do with it? Even a glass of water is more valuable existentially. But why has gold become so valuable? Why are people so obsessed with gold? They have not moved from the oral to the anal. They are constipated in their inner being. Now their whole life will reflect their constipation. They will become hoarders of gold. Gold is symbolic. The yellowness gives them some idea. You ever watch small children? It is difficult to persuade them to go to the toilet. They have almost to be forced to go to the toilet. And even then, they insist nothing is happening. Can I come back? They are learning the first lessons of miserliness, how to hold on, how not to give even that which is useless, even that which is harmful if you keep it within you, even poison. It is difficult for them to leave it, to renounce it. Two Buddhists. One of them was a miser and a hoarder, and he used to collect money and keep it. The other used to laugh at this foolish attitude. Whatsoever will come on his way, he will use it. He will never hoard it. One night, they came across a river. It was evening. The sun was setting, and it was dangerous to stay there. They had to go to the other shore. There was a town. This side was simply wilderness. The hoarder said, "Now you don't have any money, so we cannot pay the ferryman. What do you say now about it? You are against hoarding. Now, if I don't have any money, we both will die." You see the point, he said. Money is needed. The man who believed in renunciation laughed, but he didn't say anything. Then the hoarder paid, and they crossed the river. They reached the other shore. The hoarder again said, "Now remember, next time don't start arguing with me. You see, money helps. Without money, we would have been dead." A whole night on the other shore. It was dangerous to survive. Wild animals. The Hikuku, the one of the Buddhists, laughed and he said, "But we have come across the river because you could renounce it. It is not because of hoarding that we have survived. If you had insisted on hoarding it and you were not going to pay the ferryman, you would have died. It is because you could renounce, because you could leave it, you could give it, and that's why we have survived." The argument must be continuing still. But remember, money is wonderful. I'm all for it. But use it. Possess it. Own it. But your ownership arises only the moment you have become capable of giving it. At the Throat Center, this new synthesis happens. You can accept and you can give. There are people who change from one extreme to the other. First, they were incapable of giving. They could only receive. Then they change. They go to the other extreme. Now they can give, but they cannot receive. That, too, is lopsidedness. A real man is capable of accepting gifts and giving them back. In certain parts of the world, you'll find many sannyasins, many so-called Mahatmas, who will not touch money. If you give them any, they will shrink back, as if you have produced a snake or something poisonous. Their shrinking back shows that now they have moved to the other extreme. Now they have become incapable of receiving. Again, their throat center is half functioning. And a center never functions, really, unless it functions fully. Unless the wheel moves all the way, goes on moving, and creates energy fields. Then is the third eye center. At the third eye center, the right and left meet. Pingala and Ida meet and become Sushumna. The two hemispheres is what that means. Two hemispheres of the brain meet at the third eye. That is just between the two eyes. One eye represents the right, another eye represents the left. And it is just in the middle. The left and right brains meeting at the third eye is a very high synthesis. People have been capable of describing up to this point. That's why Ramakrishna could describe up to the third eye. And when he started to talk about the final, the ultimate synthesis that happens at Sahasrara, he again and again and again fell into silence, into samadhi. He was drowned in it. It was too much. It was flood-like. He was taken over to the ocean. He could not keep himself conscious and alert. The ultimate synthesis happens at Sahasrara, the crown chakra. Because of this Sahasrara, all over the world, kings, emperors, monarchs, and queens use the crown. It has become formal. But basically, it was accepted because unless your Sahasrara is functioning, how can you be a monarch? How can you be a king? How can you rule people if you have not even become a ruler of yourself? In the symbol of the crown, a secret is hidden. The secret is that a person who has reached the crown center, the ultimate synthesis of his being, only he should be the king or the queen, nobody else. Only he is capable of ruling others because he has come to rule himself. He has become a master of himself. Now he can be helpful to others also. Really, when you achieve to Sahasrara, a crown flowers within you, a 1,000-petaled lotus opens. No crown can be compared with it. But then it became just a symbol, and the symbol has existed all over the world. That simply shows that everywhere people became alert and aware in one way or another of the ultimate synthesis in the Sahasrara, Jews use the skull cap. It is exactly on the Sahasrara. Hindus allow a bunch of hair, they call it chati, the peak, to grow exactly on the spot where the Sahasrara is, or has to be. There are a few Christian societies which shave just that part of the head. When a master, deeply and eternally loving a disciple, he puts his hand on the Sahasrara. And if the disciple is really receptive, surrendered, he will suddenly feel an upsurge of energy running from the sex center to the Sahasrara. This is all about the journey within. All of it is about the journey within. This is the step-by-step process. And it may seem cloudy or to some mesmerizing, confusing. But so many times we talk about going within, staying within. This is the information and the understanding on how to go within, what to meet, how to ascend, how to interact, and how to know who and what you are. That's what all this is about. This civilization, when it knows exactly who and what it is within these bodies, and not the body, not the name, not any of it externally, but the God within it, the pure consciousness, the samadhi, the nirvana, everything that exists in this very moment shall not exist. I'll join you in the meditation. I'll return to close us out. Take an easy, slow breath in through the nose, and an easy, slow breath out of the mouth. Remain still. Life is best viewed as a grand creative project. This body each of us are in, this mind, this moment of our lives, is the greatest opportunity to experience being a designer within existence, so that we may discover the divine presence we really are. The images we project onto the universe always become our reality, whether they are powerful, warm, sunny, and optimistic, or cold, dark, depressing, and frustrating. We are the grand designers, and this moment is a result of our creativity or lack of it. So for today, give yourself several hours to relax and express yourself fully through some creative venue. Pick up a paintbrush, pencil, paper. Find a block of clay. Write something inspiring on your computer. Or have an intimate, revealing conversation with a total stranger or friend. Just do something extra creative today that you enjoy, and let yourself disappear in the creation of it. Take this with you for the rest of the day, into the evening and night, and following morning. We will return here tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern, for our Time for Change call. And tomorrow, Thursday, November 17th, 2022, 3 p.m. Eastern, to continue our global guided meditation call.